Welcome to No Fall Zone, the podcast that takes you inside the minds of Freeride World Tour athletes, past and present, who've left their mark on the sport. We lift the curtain and give you a glimpse of what life is really like for some of the world's greatest professional freeriders. Today's No Fall Zone guest is a two-time Olympian and bronze medalist in big air at the 2018 FIS Freestyle Ski World Cup. Hailing from Wanaka, New Zealand, the Treble Cone local's riding has been influenced by some of the Southern Hemisphere's finest. With his silky smooth style, creative line choices, and a deep bag of tricks, calling him the Kiwi version of Candide Tovex isn't going over the top. He really is that much fun to watch, and much like the Frenchman, he has applied his freestyle background to freeriding with great success. Last year, in his second FWT season, he podiumed on the Bec des Roses twice. His second place at the season-opening Verbier Pro and third place at the Xtreme put him fourth in the 2024 Ski Men rankings. Finn Bilous, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Dave. How you doing?
Yeah, awesome. We've been trying to catch up for a while now, so glad we've finally managed to hook up. So where are you and what have you been doing?
I've just got back home to Wanaka, New Zealand. Was just in Austria for a couple of weeks, doing some pre-season stuff with sponsors and getting things sorted. So, yeah, nice little trip, and so to be back home before we really settle in for the winter season.
All good. So, hey, I was surprised not to see your name on the list of FWT riders this year. Why aren't you back on tour, bud?
Good question. Definitely been getting asked that a fair bit the last few weeks since the roster came out. But I think for me, after competing on the FIS slopestyle and big air circuit for many years, going into the Freeride World Tour the last 2 seasons has been a pretty rad change, pretty refreshing, and just opened my eyes to a whole lot more that you can do on the mountain. And I really enjoyed that, like running towards the unknown a couple years ago. And I think for me, I'm just like, want to keep pushing that direction and dive deeper into the world of filming and spending more time learning in the backcountry. So that's where my desires are going this season, and going to make a hard choice to step away from the tour, but I'm very excited to not be tied to the contest circuit quite as much this winter.
Yeah, it's not easy being tied to the contest circuit, especially when because you've been filming quite a bit, plus you've got your new sponsor, Red Bull. I bet they want you to get out there and get in front of the cameras as much as possible. Not that the tour doesn't do that for you, but yeah, there's as you say, plenty of other options out there to have a look at. So what are the plans for this season, or is it no plan and just go where the snow takes you?
Definitely got some plans in place. Talking with a few different film production companies and figuring out what kind of going to land on this season, but looking like going to start the winter in Japan in January and then be based back out of Whistler for kind of the season in February, March, and got the opportunity to go up to Alaska last year with Matchstick Productions to do some filming after the World Tour. It was a pretty incredible opportunity, and so would love to get back up there, but definitely a lot of stars have to align to get on one of those trips and to be healthy in April, so yeah, we're not going to bank on it, but definitely want to put my best foot forward to be ready for something like that again.
No, sounds good. So how did that all come together with Matchstick? You did a trip to Tahoe with them first, and then AK came on the back of that? Was that it?
Yeah, so after the Stop and Kicking Horse last season, I got a pretty nice little email slid into my inbox while we were competing, and I was meant to be doing a different event during the Georgia stop, so I had never intended to do that event. That event unfortunately got cancelled really last minute, and it was too late to kind of book tickets to go over to Georgia and make that happen. So it was pretty incredible timing for the Matchstick opportunity to pop up, and managed to slot in 2-week kind of film trip throughout California, Utah, in between the 2 stops, which was pretty lucky because I think it's pretty hard to align, both good snow and be doing tour stops. And then off the back of that, had a pretty crazy last minute opportunity to go up to Alaska. So yeah, it was all quite unplanned, I guess, looking at the start of the winter, but super thankful that it worked out.
No doubt. Any regrets that you missed Georgia with the conditions that they got?
Well, of course, the Georgian stop was the best snow of the season. Yeah, it was such
Best
a
snow the last couple of years, maybe even.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've always wanted to check out Georgia, but I think that's the reality, of trying to do both the contest circuit and still be filming throughout the winter. You kind of have to prioritize different things. And
Yeah.
yeah, I guess I don't have any regrets, I guess, on that decision because the opportunity to go up to AK was
Yeah.
definitely exceeded expectations for me. But yeah, you always, when you're making those calls throughout the winter, have no idea if it's the right one.
No, for sure. Totally. And of course, the Freeride World Tour, there are things called wild cards that you know a thing or two about. And, if the filming doesn't work out or if you just decide you want to come back, I'm sure they'll welcome you with open arms.
Oh, we'll see. I'd like to cross my fingers and hope so. But I don't know. Maybe they've used too many of those on me already.
I don't think so. And something tells me that they like you they like you very much.
Shit.
Possibility of coming back in 2026, maybe for the Freeride World Tour World Championships in Andorra.
Yeah, I'd say I'm not looking too far ahead right now. Nothing set in stone, but yeah, interested to see where the direction of the tour goes over the next couple of winters, especially with the combining and merger of FIS coming into it as well. But
Yeah.
no promises, but we'll definitely be watching every stop this season as well and checking in on what's going down.
Yeah, indeed. I read an interview that you did. Is it with New Schoolers, I think is the website?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Yeah, and you mentioned I guess you had some good results and it was a big stepping stone in your career, the FIS freestyle circuit, but I got the feeling some memories that weren't maybe as good as you would have wished.
I think for me, like that whole period throughout competing on the slopestyle bigger circuit was like, that was my foot in the door to be able to start living this dream lifestyle. Coming from small town in New Zealand, it seemed pretty far fetched to be able to be traveling the world and be doing comps, and had some pretty amazing support early on through the like national team to be able to do that. And like throughout that whole period, I think, got to go to 2 Olympic cycles and was pretty incredible. But
Yeah.
I kind of near the tail end of that period for me started looking around and just realizing, the sport had changed a lot from the one that I kind of was idolizing growing up. And that really, I think, led to me kind of wanting to change paths and just started craving a bit of a change throughout that. But yeah, it's always an interesting one when you've got a sport that comes from, a place of, I guess, counterculture and it goes into the mainstream. It's always got growing pains with it. And I guess I kind of saw that throughout that 2 Olympic cycle period, which maybe just didn't align, I guess, with the way I saw the sport as much or what I value.
No, for sure. It's funny that you call skiing a counterculture sport, but I guess it's your the part of skiing that you come from. I think when you think about the FIS, the World Cups and chasing the Crystal Globes and all that. That's it's pretty as in bashing gates is about as mainstream as you can get in winter sports. But yeah, I know where you're coming from on the counterculture, the kind of the board sport influenced side of skiing.
Yeah, for sure. I guess like for me growing up here in Wanaka, my early days of skiing was like surrounded by people up Snowpark, New Zealand, which is probably more similar to a skate park than a ski resort. So I guess that's where the counterculture side of it comes from for me. That was my upbringing and I guess what shaped the view of skiing for me.
Yeah, you spent a lot of time at Snowpark, and for people, I'm sure most people that are watching or listening to us know what Snowpark is, but for those of us who've never been there before, kind of describe what the place is like.
Yeah, Snowpark was a crazy place. It was one of the only places in the world at that time period that was just a purpose-built terrain park with no other parts of the mountain. There was no learner slope. There wasn't like a family resort. And with that came along a certain type of person that wanted to hang out there and go ride, which was pretty cool because I think, especially in those early days, like when I was growing up, it was still just such a weird little niche pocket of skiing and snowboarding. And everyone was really like accepted and valued growing up there. And I think it was, for me, I grew up watching like Travis Rice jump in the triple line, and they had Ken Block jumping a rallycross car off the triple line, like during operational hours. It was just kind of like Kiwi style, anything goes. And yeah, I think that definitely had a huge influence on not just the New Zealand ski and snowboard industry, but impacted the whole global kind of industry as a whole. So it was pretty crazy to be able to grow up here and have early eyes on that, as a youngster. A lot of kids, I guess, my age wouldn't have even experienced it or maybe even not know what it is. So yes, super lucky for that.
No, for sure. Yeah, that place, there's some stories actually. So what are some of your best memories of hanging out at Snowpark?
Or I think watching the the rallycross cars driving around was always pretty nuts. For us, we had an event called the Martageddon that was always pretty rad. That was like a kind of youth comp that just was like, they always had so many prizes. All the Groms came from all around the country to ride it. The electric quarter pipe battle, some of the sessions on the stair set. I think though ultimately it was like just the vibe up that place was unmatched. Like still to this day, I haven't been to a resort that's got that really that type of atmosphere to it. So I think that for me was what kind of sums it all up. Definitely wish I could go back in time and experience it now that I'm a bit older.
That's awesome. Now, were there like kind of some beginner hits too, or was it all just massive kickers everywhere?
They had the range for sure. I mean, I was pretty grown when I was riding up there, and there was lots of stuff for us to do, like long boxes, and they had like a big kind of box line and rails, and then it kind of progressively stepped up. The biggest jump line ran right next to the chairlift as well, so you just like have eye candy all day long, like best riders in the world coming down to shred. So yeah, it was a crazy time period to be a part of.
No doubt. That's awesome. Now, did you do the standard, slalom and stuff like that, or were you just straight into the freestyle stuff?
No, I've never raced in my life actually, which I think was pretty
Oh, it's so refreshing. You're the first person I've interviewed in 2 years that I've never raced. It's awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty unconventional, I guess, in that sense, though, especially for a free ride kind of skier now. A lot of the other kids, I guess, growing up around here kind of went down that race program. But I think for us, it was quite expensive doing any coaching. And me and my brother just honestly really enjoyed riding around with each other and just finding side hits up around Treble Cone. And so, yeah, naturally kind of just progressed in that kind of sense. And one thing led to another. And yeah, I guess just kind of keep following his footsteps. And that led me off some pretty big booters.
Yeah, no doubt. So who else were you hanging out with other than your brother? Well, obviously your brother is a huge influence on you, and we'll talk about him in a little bit more depth in a little while. But who else were you like? Who was your crew? Who were you?
Yeah, we had a crazy little pocket of Groms down here when I was growing up. The Wellses had a huge influence. Jossie was the first skier from New Zealand to really like hit the big time and go out there and do it, and so he had a huge influence on me and his younger brothers. I always competed against Jackson, and then was riding with Bo a lot as well. Then the Porteous brothers came along into town as well a little later on and rode a lot with them. We rode a lot with snowboarders as well, like Carlos Garcia Knight, JJ Raywood, Tian Collins, Zoe Sadowski Sennett, all that kind of crew. We all kind of grew up together in that age, and then Craig Murray came into town as well, probably when I was probably like around I was like 11, and he's my brother's age. So once he got into town, we were kind of like a little three amigos, just boosting around and pretty much riding every day that we could. So yeah, it was super cool.
Awesome. And some of the other free riders, like like Sam Smoothie, and I guess Sam and Anna, the Smoothie kids, Jess Hodder, I don't know, Jamesa, who are were they part of your crew? Dion, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, Dion pretty much set the whole thing up in NZ. He's given all of us so much opportunity, which will always be kind of in debt to him. Super thankful for what he's done for both myself, but also the whole of the New Zealand kind of freeride community. And then, Sam, Smoothie, and Fraser were definitely like in that upper tier. They were a bit older than me, so I was just like kind of trying to sit on their heels, but they would always blast me off when I was a grown up TC because they're riding too quick. And then I think as well, like Will Jackways, he had a big kind of influence on a lot of us here in NZ as snowboarder. Super nice rider to watch. And Jeff Small as well. There's plenty of names to go around New Zealand. But yeah, I guess for us, kind of different age groups, we got our own little pocket. And I think, like I was saying, we were surrounded by that kind of like Miguel, Nico, JJ, Carlos, all those guys, rode a lot with them. And then they kind of been in the last few years, I've got to reintegrate a lot more with the freeride crew, because throughout that kind of 8-year period or whatever, when I was doing slopestyle and big air, it was always like this little side fling that I had going on, the whole freeride side. So I didn't get too many days in with all that crew, and we'll just try and like get as much in between on bad weather days as I could.
Awesome. And no ski snowboard rivalry, I guess. Well, no, because you're 25 now, is that it? Yeah. So, because man, I mean, I'm old enough where I remember, still when kind of twin tip skis came in, and I mean, just a little side anecdote here. So I worked at Quicksilver Europe back in the late 90s, early 2000s, and when I came in to work in the marketing department, I came in as marketing director, core marketing manager, and they just signed Candide. And so Jasper Sanders, who was the snow, the winter sport team manager at the time, he kind of took me aside. He's like, Dave, I got to talk to you about this kid Candide, because we've got a skier on the team. And whatever, long story short, he's like, this kid's, he's not just any skier. He is the shizzle. And I think a couple weeks later, we ended up going up to do a photo shoot at the glacier in Diablerets. And I saw him for the first time. I was just like, wow, that is insane. But just to say that I'm old enough where I remember when the skiers and snowboarders didn't get along. So that was but I guess when you were coming up there was no kind of animosity. You guys were just stoked to go shred. It didn't matter if you were on one stick or two.
Yeah, I don't know. There's definitely still beef. But I think, growing up in New Zealand, we've got a smaller pool of riders down here. And so if you're going to be beefing with the borders, then it's like you're not going to have too many mates. So I think ultimately that just brought us all together. But definitely still some funny ones. And I remember as well the thing of like Grommy beats have disappeared as well. I remember when you were younger, like it was always a thing. If you're a bit younger, you were getting the pummel down, which I don't feel like happens anymore.
No, I don't think that happens anymore either. So I think that came from the surfing. And speaking of surfing, you guys I know you and your brother do tons of surfing, but as a Kiwi border skier, is it part of the culture? Does everyone surf as well, or not quite so much?
Not everyone, but definitely a good crew of us. Like down here, even living in Wanaka, we're pretty inland, but we've got a crazy proximity to like the ocean around here. I don't think there's many places in the world where you can ride crazy alpine terrain and then be surfing in the same day and not be surrounded by thousands of people.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy down here, and definitely try to make the most of that when home.
No, for sure. And did you skate too? Skateboard or?
Yeah, skate a lot growing up. Not as much anymore, just since I'm in the winter so much. And I think
dangerous, dude.
Yeah. And I guess whenever there is time, off snow, I'm trying to be on the beach now and try to get some waves. So that takes up a lot of my time. It seems like always be looking at snow forecasts and driving around in the car trying to find waves.
No doubt. Or jetting off to Indo, or running down to the beaches of the southwest of France in between stops on tour, and
something like that.
That's awesome, though. You got to do it. It's great. No doubt. Oh, that's sick. Okay, so tell me what it was like to be Hank's little brother.
Oh, just trouble. Nah. It was sick. I mean, yeah, me and Hank grew up doing pretty much the exact same thing. We grew up like 15 minutes out of town in Wanaka in a place called Highway Flat, where pretty rural area, not too much going on, gravel roads and riding mountain bikes and pretty much fighting anyway to entertain ourselves. So I think that led to a childhood full of curiosity and just a lot of fucking around. So yeah, it was pretty fun getting to hang with him. And I think as well, like throughout the years, he's inspired me a lot in both like the skiing sense, but just kind of his outlook on things, and just kind of, I guess, staying true to what you believe in. But yeah, it's been super fun getting to hang on his heels. I wish we got to shred a bit more. Like these days, we're kind of both doing different things. So, yeah, it's harder to link, but we definitely still try and make the time to either be in the water surfing or up the hill skiing. So, yeah, pretty fun upbringing, I'd say, being Haxel, bro.
No, no doubt. Awesome. Yeah, and you mentioned you guys aren't really on the same wavelength as far as competition, because he stopped competing, I want to say like 3 or 4 years before you came on tour, or was it even longer than that? Maybe
For
even
what was
longer than that, because it was well before COVID, wasn't it?
it? It was the year of COVID, because
Right.
he was
Okay.
very here for
So 3 years,
when it
yeah,
got
3 year gap between you.
yeah, yeah, when the world got busted, he came running home and then stayed home. It was pretty hard to travel from New Zealand during that period. So yeah.
No doubt. And so I was stalking you on Instagram, and I came across a picture of it was a happy birthday wish to your brother, to the gnarliest nurse I know.
Yeah, that's right.
So what's it? So he obviously still skis, but he's gone back to full-time nursing, working in a hospital, or what's his fill us in on what's going on in Big Brother's life right now.
Yeah, so after the year they were on tour, came back from New Zealand when the COVID pandemic struck, and then got into studying nursing and pretty much dropped in on that throughout the side of not being able to travel internationally very easily from NZ. And yeah, applied his energy into doing that and a bit of skiing as well throughout that time, but kind of focused on setting up I guess a different strings to his bow. And yeah, he's been really enjoying it. Finished studying down in Dunedin and then did a year working up in Gisborne, which is on the North Island on the East Coast last year, and then has just moved back down to Dunedin this year. So he's both pretty full time doing that now and figuring out the world of work life compared to pro ski life, which I commend him for. Yeah, I think it's been a cool antidote for him. I think the skiing side is a amazing world, but it's quite a privileged world, and I think that side of being able to give back throughout nursing has been super rewarding, and especially working in places like Gisborne, kind of I guess a lower socioeconomic kind of area than especially compared to down here living in Wanaka, which is a privileged little bubble. And so I think it's been super cool for him to kind of go up there and see different parts of New Zealand, I guess just get a broader perspective on the privilege that we've had.
No doubt. So when he was on tour, because I think Hank did 3-4 years on tour. So when he was off on the Freeride World Tour, you were in the middle of doing still the FIS Big Airs and all the World Cups and following the circuit. So you guys were, you were both competing, but in totally two different universes.
Yeah, it was funny because we kind of saw on surface it kind of looked like we were doing something similar, but I saw him less during that time when he was competing on tour, and while I was doing the slopestyle bigger than I did probably when he wasn't on tour. It was pretty hard to align schedules, especially when you go into those Olympic kind of years. It gets pretty hectic with just bouncing around back and forward. That year, I think must have been in 2019, 2020, something like that. He flew over after the Japan stop and surprised me in Aspen and came to watch the X Games, which was pretty funny to have him roll up unannounced and just roll into my room one night. I was like, whoa, what's up, bro?
That's awesome. That's fantastic. So so you guys weren't hanging out that much, but I imagine you were still in contact, and the fact that he did the Freeride World Tour, was he telling you stories about, life on tour and the parties and the faces and, going crazy in Austria and opening up new lines, gapping the gap on the Wildseeloder and stuff like that? Or was he the reason that you decided that I need to give the Freeride World Tour a try, or did it just kind of happen?
Yeah, I think I'd always been interested in competing in freeride more throughout that time when I was doing slopestyle and big air a lot as well. Throughout, I guess, growing up here in NZ, had the space and the terrain to ride everything, and was competing in both slopestyle, big air, half pipe as well, and also freeride, and was kind of just trying to balance them all. And then it eventually kind of got to the crossroad. And around like 2016, I remember I qualified for the junior world champs in Andorra, I think it was, for freeride, and it was overlapped with the Youth Olympics in Norway. And that was kind of the first decision I guess I had to make on which kind of direction I went. I went to the Youth Olympics and kind of went down that route, and it always had it in the back of my mind that I was wanting to do some more freeride and try to make the opportunity as much as I could to get over to like the Remarkables when there was an event here and compete in the 4-star. And I think, for me, the tour came along after I think watching both Craig and Hank compete on the tour.
Right. Yeah.
Having grown up skiing with those guys so much, all of a sudden it kind of felt tangible. It wasn't this kind of like far off thing. It was like, damn, those guys are riding on it, and I rode with them, so maybe it could be an opportunity. And then, I guess following on from that 2022 Olympics to get the wildcard opportunity, it was just kind of like all stars aligned, and it was like an opportunity not to miss. So went for it.
No doubt. So how was that first contest in Fieberbrunn? I think you got 6th, so you did really well. I know you made an impression because I'm not doing the commentary on the webcast anymore, but I'm doing all the behind the scenes TV voiceovers and writing the scripts and everything. So I watch all of the events very closely. And I was like, yeah, who's this Finn Bilous kid? New Kiwi. Yeah, okay, let's see what he's got. I was like, wow, okay. This kid's the real deal. But how was it for you?
Thank you. It was a culture shock, honestly. It was pretty wild having been in that highly intense world of going into the 2022 Olympics stacked with the COVID pandemic. We were living such like tight quarters, not trying to get COVID and just be like on a training regime. It was kind of like being on school camp, honestly, leading into those games. And once getting through that and knowing I was going to go into the tour, like I think it was 2 weeks after the Olympics, like it was so quick. It was such a big change, and I remember just rolling up to the top of the Vitsilotzer in Fieberbrunn, and I was like climbing over, and the first rider I see was a Bell Moga just drop in, and I believe he was hitting the eagle, and he like didn't quite make it, and he clipped, and he just like is ragging, and I just remember like going over the top, seeing him ragging head over heels, like just overexposure, and I just got to the top and was like, what am I doing here? And then kind of had to shake that off and get ready to buckle in and go for it. So it was pretty rapid. I didn't get too much time to do much free riding prior to that event. Like I'd hoped that it was going to be some better snow leading into the free ride comp, and it was just like 0 to 100 real quick, but super cool to kind of just throw yourself in the deep end and try to do the best that you could. And the stoked with being able to put down that Cork 7 was something pretty rewarding, and cool to show a little bit of that like freestyle background, I guess, into that kind of first run on tour.
Yeah, no doubt. No, that was sick. So then you got the wild card to come back and compete in 2023. And I guess your reality did not meet your expectations in that first year on tour. I've been told by a few little birds, one of whom's name is Dom Dar, that you're a bit disappointed that some of the freestyle aspect of your riding wasn't maybe didn't fit with the judging criteria, or you didn't understand what the judges were looking for. It was a real, you requalified, but by one spot or the last requalifier. So that I guess things didn't really work out the way you'd hoped they would, but you decided to stick with it.
Yeah, I think for me, that's always a subjective point, I guess, like the judging criteria and whatnot. And I think, never really base your riding around like what the judges want to see. I think always try and put down runs that kind of just fit to your style and what you enjoy. And I think that was my biggest goal going on tour that first season. And I think having been given a wild card, I kind of was like, well, if they want to see me competing on this, they're probably looking for something a little different and just kind of like, I guess, represent that kind of freestyle background. And I think, I really try to run with that and just go for it. Doing things like landing switch and doing all types of stuff. I remember that was probably the biggest talking point, was around the 540 And I remember we just went back and forth on that, which I don't know, it kind of just like snowballed into a whole longer conversation. But I think for me, like that season was just kind of, I guess, very much about stepping away from the conventions of freeride and the judging criteria and just trying to do something different. And I feel like, gained a different type of following through that. And people love to jump on the comments and say that what they think about judging and different points. But I think for me, yeah, it was always just, I guess, that side of trying to do something that fit with how I've grown up in my riding style, and a lot of learning, I guess, through that first year. And I feel like that was kind of resonated like in this last year on tour. I kind of could learn from some of those things and try to like combine them a little bit more with some more four line riding. And I think the venues definitely catered for that a bit more this season.
No, for sure. No, they definitely did. I was while you were talking about that, I was trying to figure out the 540. Was that in Bacara or was that in Andorra?
That was,
tell me it wasn't. It was in Kicking Horse, probably.
That was in the first event.
Was it? Okay, it was Bacara. That was, yeah. So what were some of the conversations that you had with the judges, with the other riders and stuff? Because was it a fakie to forward, did you land switch or did you take off switch?
Landed switch, so I took off forward.
Landed switch and then had to revert out of it, and so they were.
Yeah,
what was the discussion? Because I mean, yeah, there's. It's funny because I was on the surf tour for ages, and I remember when guys like Adriano de Souza came on and was throwing stuff that the judges had never seen before, and they didn't know how to judge it, and we were having these same kind of discussions at the dinner table afterwards, going, but no, he did the nose pick under the lip and flipped it around, and how could you guys not have given that more points and stuff? So I know, I kind of know what you're coming from, but I'm interested in hearing how those conversations went, because those are the type of things that you never get to hear, you don't hear them on the webcast, you don't see them on social media. So what was
kind of like retelling the memory on it. I remember we had like a riders meeting about like kind of just judging overall, like early season on that year on tour. And, it's a kind of age old question around like right now, I think there's so much like movement and momentum with combining freestyle with freeride, and people are going to sit on either ends of the spectrum with that, of kind of taking more speed, four line approach with, maybe larger cliffs, or like trying to combine like more freestyle tricks and kind of adapting to that. And I think finding that like threshold is a tricky one, it's always going to be different for everyone. And I remember going into that event and I was like thinking about doing this like hook 7 off this windlet, and there was just part of me that was like, I don't know if I've ever seen like someone do a 540 on the tour, and just kind of was like, damn, this is the perfect opportunity to just like do something fully different, and quite risky, landing switch and especially chewed up powder is quite challenging.
Yeah.
And so we like decided to go for it, and remember landing and putting it down, and was kind of like landed straight in this bomb hole and did this kind of like nose like manual out of it, and then like landed and did the revert right away. And I was riding telescopic poles as well, and when I like landed, when I went to turn, the mechanism mustn't have been screwed on right, or like what had happened, but the pole not even touching the ground, but the one that when I turned around just went flying out, and so I was just left with half a pole for the second of the run, which don't know if many people saw. And then it came back after that, when we're in that judging kind of talk, there was like a lot of back and forth about that kind of question where it was discussing. And I think, my 540 got pointed out on being, that side of something new and I guess innovative in a way. And it was a lot of confusion around kind of like the landing and like the revert and like how much you have to ride out and the control on it. I guess it was like there was a couple runs I think that day where there was like some back slap landings that scored like quite a bit higher on that, and so there was like this question kind of in around where you like see that switch riding and they're like doing something new versus doing something maybe that's safer, where I feel like I'd be more consistent on doing something like a cork 7, but decided to try and do something a bit out of the box and do the 5. And so that was kind of like, I'd always think it's cool to try and I guess do something that's kind of in a different direction and just kind of make people think about different things. And I feel like that was a good opportunity to do it. So no regrets on that one, but it was a funny like back and forth. That definitely the conversation kept on going and going about it. That it was like at the end of the day, it's like the comp's done. You can't change it.
Yeah, no, exactly. We're not going to go back and change the score, but for next time, because it's because up until that point we've seen guys do butter threes or like Marcus Aders, what do you butter into the I guess it was the butter three, but coming in switch off on the back that one year. I don't think he won, but he did really well. I think he got second or third.
Three on the back, I remember. Yeah, got like second or something, but
exactly. Yeah. So, but because he buttered into it. So where's and then the whole thing in freestyle, if you any kind of revert, you're gonna get knocked down. Doesn't matter if it's in skiing, snowboarding, skating, whatever. You gotta ride into the next trick switch. But obviously in freeride skiing, it's a little bit more difficult. The snowboarders can maybe go into the next feature switch, but skiing some of those faces switch from one feature to the next. That's maybe that's where the progression is going to come. Who knows? But
yeah, I think it's cool. That's like quite refreshing coming from the slopestyle world where there's so many like little codes of conduct of like what to do and what not to, and it's like you don't even have to spin both ways in freeride. It's quite refreshing just spinning the same direction all year.
I've always wondered about that. Do you think the judges? Well, I guess you don't think that they really take it into consideration, but the spinning in opposite directions in the same run does. And and I'm not even a skier that knows how to spin in either direction. So which is, do you have a preferred direction, and how do you think that should be scored?
Yeah, I think most riders, I guess, have their preferred direction. I spin right naturally. Nowadays in like slopestyle and bigger, I feel like some of the younger riders growing up are like so ambidextrous with which way they spin. It's pretty crazy. People are doing like double cork 16s, 18s both ways, so that definitely in the slopestyle and bigger world plays a huge part of it. And I think we're going to see it more and more in freeride as the tricks and the technical difficulty of those increase. But right now, I think, it's still just putting tricks into some of those like highly exposed lines is so challenging that we're not seeing as much like variety in the trick place. And I guess that comes back to the conversation we're having around like 720 versus 540. It's like when you start putting more emphasis and weight on trick selection, then you're going to start to see a lot more like of that judging kind of get pulled into the place of like, all right, is a 540 harder? Is they spinning both ways and doing all that? But I think that will be something further down the line. Who knows? Maybe it will just start this season. You can never forecast how quick the progression goes. It's crazy.
No, for sure, because last season was ridiculous from the maybe not. I mean, we've got the double backy and we're seeing lots of sevens now. But the amplitude and the technical, spins and the tweaking and just the placement. I think it was in Georgia. I want to, it was Palm or Gogan. Actually, both of them did transfers over that like gnarly kind of triangle pyramid spine feature in the middle that were just stupid.
Yeah, it's crazy. I feel like last season there was definitely a like exponential curve on the riding. Crazy environment to be in, just with I guess a lot of like young new faces on the tour as well. I think it definitely like pushed things in a pretty fast momentum direction,
No, for sure. Yeah, definitely had. We interviewed Rene Barkerhead a couple weeks ago, and I asked him, like, so who's the new Rene Barkerhead? He's like, well, the thing is, I can't do the tricks that the kids are doing nowadays. But he's like, if there's one guy that, I think that has the same mentality as me, it's probably Max Hitzig. But he's like, but man, I can't spin 360s like that. And what you guys are doing, which brings me to the next thing that I wanted to ask you about was, is Verbier last year. I mentioned it in the intro. You got, the comp got canceled in 2023, but you had 2 goes at the Vecteros in 2024, and they were both super impressive. But the 360 over the Hollywood cliff at the Extreme was just, ridiculous. But you guys there was you, Marcus and Max all had 3s. I know Marcus did the gigantic double down at the bottom, but he spun. Did he spin he spun the Gilles Voirol cliff, I think.
Yeah, I think he spun something above it and then went into that insane double down the bottom.
Yeah. No, that was just, but that was just nuts. But seeing you guys spin that stuff, and just the amplitude of the rotations, is, it's just absolutely crazy. Do you realize, when you were planning that line, because I guess you said somewhere, I read it or heard you talking about it, that was the line you'd wanted to do in 2023, and then the comp got canceled, but you got your comeback in 2024 and got to do it. So are you just scoping the line going, this is what I want to do, and I'm going to chuck a 3 there? Or do you realize when you're making that decision in your head that I'm going to be the first person to throw a 360 off of that cliff?
I think that approach and line selection is different for everyone. For me, I definitely try and have like a few different options, given if the conditions don't like align on the day. Quite often you'll get up there and maybe it's got hit with some wind, like down the center, or like the left's looking like it's going to ride better. So I always kind of try to have a few different lines like placed throughout the venue so that I can adapt on the day. But that line in particular was probably the one that like stuck out the most for me out of all the tour stops. That one, that like looking at the back, that's got such an allure, it's such a high consequence, like highly exposed face, that I think, it's always definitely running through my head, it's something you don't want to fall on, and it's a pretty important piece to stick. But I had this just like intrinsic kind of desire to go down the guts and do a 3 off that thing. I wouldn't say I've thought too much in around the, like, I don't know, being the world's first on it, but I think it was just something that like drew me in, like looking at that piece and being like, I feel like I'm confident to land that, if I could straight air it, I think I could 3 it. So the trickiest part was it's got such a downhill takeoff, and to like actually kind of flatten out, you almost have to like and set it like as if you're setting a cork, but like in the wrong direction, almost more like misty or something. And yeah, I remember like coming around on that and landing and just being like, oh, sick, landed, and being like, man, I'm not going to rag over a bunch of rock. But then I was also going, oh shit, I've got like 3 more features I've got to land now. So it was, yeah.
And I'm going 100 miles an hour.
yeah, for sure. And so, yeah, legs were burning down the bottom, but was like just stoked to put that one down. I think after having picked out that line the season before and having honestly this year of like it percolating in the back of my brain, I was like just so stoked that it like the conditions aligned that day, and to be able to put that down felt like a really cool kind of like put that one to rest, and felt pretty accomplished, I guess, internally after that one.
No doubt. And did you, like, beforehand, have you gone back and watched some of the past editions of the contest and seen what some of the other skiers have done on that cliff or is it just kind of, you get there, you rock into town, 3, 4, 5 days before you guys do the face checks, then you just pick your line depending on what's there or on the, for this edition? Or do you kind of have a look at, maybe I could do that? Or I remember Aurélien I think he did the Lincoln Loop on the Voirol cliff or things like that. Do you look back at the history of some of the spots, or is it just all in the now?
Again, I think it varies between riders. For me, I try to not watch too much stuff before like seeing the venue, just given that every season it's going to vary depending on the conditions and how much snow they've had on the face. And I think also, like, especially that first year, I was like really going in with the intention of just like doing something different. And so kind of trying not to watch too much of what had been done on the face, I think can almost skew your like perspective on things. And I think I try to go in full clean slate, find a line, and then we've got access to, lots of the like old runs that have been done. And that's when I'll start to compare to see like if that cliff that you're looking at hitting is 80 foot or if it's 10
Right.
foot. Like sometimes when you're looking from like far away, it's so hard to tell like the size of things. And that's where I found the like old runs and some of the drone shots like really helpful to kind of actually gauge out like what the takeoff might be like. And so yeah, for me, I try to go in with pretty clean slate and keep it open so that you just let like any idea flow to you, and kind of, I guess that hopefully will in turn like domino into doing something that's like, I guess, the best reflection of your style of riding.
Yeah. And do you talk about your lines with some of the other guys? Because I know, it's the Freeride World Tour family. This is the theme that comes back in all these things, and it really is. From the organizers to the athletes to everybody traveling, it is like a big family feel, and in the hotels, and going to the buffet and having dinner together every night, and all that. So, and I know that some riders are really open about their lines and are talking with other guys, and you think that goes, and then others, really play their cards closer to their chest. Where do you fall in the, that's what I'm going to do, or, oh yeah, maybe not?
I'm pretty open with it. I feel like most Kiwis are, honestly. We're not trying to hide too much. But yeah, it's always cool, like bouncing ideas around. I think more often than not, you're like gaps on and you're like looking at a cliff maybe, and you're like, you think that goes? Like, does it work? And it's always like, well, it's pretty sketchy, but probably goes. Like, you kind of get nothing back from like that question. But I think it's nice to have some of that trust in like different riders, and you always kind of gravitate towards the same types of people, I think, in those conversations. And this season in particular was really cool for me, like having Ben Richards along. He's like one of my best mates that I grew up with here in Wanaka, and we ski a lot together here. And so it was super nice to be able to have that like close bond with someone that you ride a lot with and kind of know like their style of riding really well, to kind of go like, well, do you think I could get away with that? Or do you think I'm going to get smoked? And I think we're both pretty honest with each other and around that. But yeah, for me, I definitely will like tell people what I'm doing. I didn't tell too many people about doing the Hollywood though, just because I was pretty like skitzed out that if the conditions weren't good, I wouldn't want to do it. And I didn't want to like, I guess, talk myself up before trying that. So yeah, Ben knew I was doing that, and then like some of my like family and stuff, but no one, it was pretty quiet that one until landing it.
No doubt. So you and Ben are super tight, and you guys had both of you had amazing seasons last year. So there's not a little twinge of regret that you're not, back on together.
I think for sure it would be so fun to keep that going. But I think ultimately for me, I've kind of always been drawn to doing film projects and kind of spending more time in that realm. And I think Ben's got such an exciting kind of couple years ahead on the tour, and super stoked to support and watch him go with that. And yeah, I think we had so much fun on it last year that I'm kind of surprised that we managed to survive it, So I'm well, maybe it's for the better for both of our health.
Awesome. Just from a riding standpoint or from an everything standpoint?
Pretty holistic overall impression and approach, I'd say, that we had for last year's tour.
Awesome. Keeping it loose. Kiwi style.
Yeah, Team Useless. Someone's going to keep it going.
That's awesome. So you're basing yourself out of Squamish again this season?
Yeah, around Squamish, Whistler area. Did that last winter and kind of been based out of Canada for the last couple of years. And yeah, it's been a nice little spot.
And there's quite a Kiwi crew that's based in and around BC anyways nowadays, I guess.
Yeah, so for sure.
Are you hanging with was that like a conscious decision, or did you all just kind of end up there?
Yeah, I think like we call it like sheep mentality here in New Zealand. It seems like one person like books a plan, and then it's kind of like, oh, that sounds pretty sick, like we'll do that. And so it kind of like flowed on, and we had like Craig Murray was out there last winter, Ben Richards, myself, Jess Hodder's out there. We had a couple of snowboarders as well, so it was a nice little like kind of home away from home overseas. And I think for me too, like North America definitely feels a bit more homely than being in Europe. Like I guess with the language barrier and whatnot, it's a nice place to kind of like return to and then do shorter trips to Europe is kind of, I found that to be a bit more, bit easier.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, plus I guess in general, the snow is probably a little bit better in BC on a regular basis than, Europe can be pretty hit and miss, or, you're in the Alps, it's dumping in the Pyrenees. You're in the Pyrenees, it's dumping in the Alps. You're in Switzerland, it's dumping in Austria, or, it's one of those ones where we call it the French surf check when you're running around in Hossiger trying to find the sandbank that's on fire with the right tide, the right swell, the whole thing. I think that's kind of like skiing and snowboarding in the Alps compared to, I mean, I know it's not always fantastic in Whistler, but it seems like the level of snowpack is probably a little bit better on a more regular basis.
Yeah, I think we're pretty easy customers to please coming from New Zealand, honestly.
As well.
Either Europe or go to Canada, it's going to probably be better than what we have here in New Zealand a lot of the time. So, we'll take what we get.
Yeah, no doubt. But I guess you were saying before we started recording that you've had a pretty good season in New Zealand, or end of the season, the last month and a half, I guess.
Yeah, quite a slow start, and like through the middle section when there's usually quite like reliable snow. This year it seemed to turn on more in like mid-September and carried right through into like, late October. You can probably still ski right now, and it's mid-November, so it's pretty crazy down here. It seems like the seasons have just been getting more and more erratic, different storms coming at different times. But yeah, there's so much to do down here in Wanaka. I feel like when the conditions might not be that great too, because we've got an amazing like terrain park and half pipe up at Cardrona, and then when it turns on, like TC is such a fun place to ride, and Backcountry is crazy too. So there's like, whatever conditions that cater for, there's something to ride, which is pretty sick.
No doubt. Can never get bored.
Nah. And then go surfing when it gets bad. So it's just like, that's why I can hardly leave this place. It's too good.
Yeah, no, fair enough. So leaving that place, how old were you when you started traveling on a regular basis, and how was it adjusting to life away from home as a young up and coming pro shredder?
Yeah, I think for me it's been quite familiar, honestly, because my dad's from the States and my mum's from England, so we grew up and get over to the Northern Hemisphere when we could, growing up, and go visit family. And my whole family's skiers, so we'd always try and tag it on with a ski trip somewhere. And that usually took us more to North America. And my dad's a avalanche safety instructor and a ski guide, and so he'd go over and usually do some guiding work throughout the Northern Hemisphere winter, and would pretty much just mooch off his work perks as a family in between. And so had a pretty incredible upbringing of getting to go and see a lot of different locations from early on. And then when I was, I think, 13, I did my first like season away from like being with the family, and kind of started living that life. But it's been, the last full summer I had in New Zealand was when I was 9 years old. So it's, I think, been like almost 30 back-to-back winters or something now.
Oh, wow. I was about to say the endless winter, but you've really been living it.
Yeah, so hence why the surf trips in between have become more and more important to top up the vitamin D storage.
Yeah, no doubt. And is it true your brother shapes boards too?
He does shape. They're a bit janky, but I shouldn't say that. He's doing a good job, but he's I guess kind of new to that. He's been doing it the last couple of years, and been learning a lot. I'm hoping to get one from him, but probably won't give me one now that I just said that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So who inspired you other than your brother and the kind of the Kiwi crew that you're with? But like when you started realizing, well, I guess you realized pretty darn early that there was a whole wide world out there other than, just Wanaka and what was going on in New Zealand. But who were some of the, I don't know, what inspired you? Who were some of your influences internationally as you were growing up?
Yeah.
Like, who's the first guy oh wow, that guy's, I want to ski like that guy? Or, I mean, you're super stylish. Everybody says it. Obviously, I think the surfing influenced some of that, but like, I don't know what makes you tick as far as, or what kind of set you on the path that you're on now from a influence and inspiration standpoint?
Oh, I think biggest influences for me growing up and still now, like Sean Pettit had a big influence on me. Some of his like film parts from back in the day were absurd. Like some of those big cork threes, really resonated. And then Sammy Carlson's had a big influence, I think, as well. His career that he's had from going from, slope style and big air and crushing the comps over there, and also be filming video parts throughout that was always something that was super impressive. And Marcus Eder, doing the tour as well. That was like definitely cool to watch him go into that realm and crush it. Candide Dovex, definitely, one of the GOAT in that sense.
Yeah.
There's plenty of riders, I think, but those ones like really stand out for me as kind of being, in a whole nother league, especially when it comes to that like freeride backcountry space. And I think I got a lot of influence as well from snowboarders, like that upbringing of riding with a lot of boarders, and that quite like cross-directional approach is something that I always thought was super cool. And then also, I guess, like in the later years going into surfing, those like, I'd say my influence now comes from a lot of different areas, a lot of different sports, and not just skiing. And I think that, I guess, has kind of like led to trying to do some different stuff, is trying to take some of those influences from different places into my riding on the mountain.
Who's your favorite surfer?
I definitely been enjoying watching like YETI Verbier surf, Craig Anderson.
I was going to see, I wrote it down. You ski like Craig Anderson surfs.
Damn, that's a nice compliment. Thank you. But yeah, I think there's plenty of surfers as well out there that definitely I love watching, and I think just that flow is something that's so cool to watch in surfing. I think the combination between turns, of like what those little body movements and kind of positioning is something that I really like saw in surfing that you can bring into the ski world, like really trying to link things between features and kind of look at it as like one big feature instead of like two different cliffs or something. So yeah, I think there's a lot to take from those different sports.
Oh no, for sure. Coming back to line choice. So when you're choosing a line to film or choosing a line in a contest, what differences are there, or is there any? But when I watch you ski, I get the feeling that when it's really just free riding, they're both amazing to watch, but do you push yourself harder, or is it just the faces maybe that we've seen you ride in the Freeride World Tour that force you to go bigger and maybe take a little bit more risk than if you're just out filming for the camera or just cruising with your friends?
Yeah, I think I always try and adapt my riding best to the terrain and kind of like actually be influenced by like how the natural kind of terrain slopes and whether it's going, off camber or try and really understand that and base my riding in around those different features. And so for me, I think that is something that's across the board for both in competition and then in filming. I'd say the biggest difference that I see in it is like when you're working with a creative team, when you've got filmers up there, it's kind of like basing around how they're going to film it. And if you've got like a connection with that filmer, it can be really like easy to dial in like those different riding styles and you kind of know what type of shot they're looking for. Whereas in the contest, you're just looking for something top to bottom that, again, reflects your style. But I think you don't have as much kind of ability to like really tailor it to how you want that shot to be. So I'd say it definitely is adapts, but I'd say the biggest influence on that is the terrain.
No doubt. All right. Well, that's a good answer. I'm glad I asked that question, actually. One for me. But no, because a lot of times guys are like, I don't know. I mean, I think there's definitely a difference, but you don't always get an answer that's as specific as that. And I think, the working with the cameraman and trying to really make the terrain and the angles and stuff look good. That definitely makes a difference.
Yeah, it's a cool side, I think, of that. Working with the filmer, and they're so often dictated by light in the shot, and you're trying to like do your best riding style and get the best trick, and so it's always that like compromise, I think, between the two, which is a like very cool collaborative process that I've been enjoying a lot.
Oh, for sure. And filming and in still photography as well, because it's another thing that I really enjoy about watching, checking out your Instagram, is there's a ton of just super arty shots, just carving, or, it's not just about the tricks. It's about the whole look and feel and vibe, and a lot of black and white, and just powder flying, and you're not necessarily doing once again, it's not about the trick. It's really about the whole vibe of where you're at, and I just love some. I think there was one shot for the video for White Noise that you did with Quick. It's just like a kind of a close up, and you're just doing this full speed, just carve, and the hand placement and everything. It's like watching, I don't know, like a Richard Cram cutback, or a Parco carve or something like that. Just that's just awesome, and just seeing that nowadays when it's all just trick, it's super refreshing to see that you're looking for an artistic side of things, and that it's still getting thousands of likes on your Instagram.
Oh, cheers. Yeah, I think that simplicity, I guess, that you're speaking of definitely has come from that influence, I think, from surfing. I've always been so intrigued by that, where there's obviously guys doing crazy airs and like air reverses and all this stuff on boards now, but like for me, the video parts I like to watch the most are those people that are just like so refined and doing some of the simplest things in a different way. And like the turn on skis is something that's been around forever. It's one of the simplest things you do on snow, but also I think the most important too. And I think that ability to like do it in different ways and shoot it in different ways is something that's like been a cool like challenge to jump in on, and lucky to have a lot of amazing photographers and filmers to work with throughout the years to like I guess try and capture that in a unique way that probably has come from a lot of that influence of being in the water.
No doubt. Edge work is it's in surfing or snowboarding or skiing. That's the basis of everything, and making a turn look good is not always an easy thing to do, but you do it pretty well.
Yes, thank you.
Good deal. So God, I've got so many questions and so little time left to ask them. Favorite trip, favorite place to ski other than home, because it's too easy to say home. Where's your favorite place in the world to go skiing?
I'm glad you ruled that out, because I most often say Wanaka. I think definitely being in Canada, like in around in the backcountry, like Revy or something like that, has had this like huge allure for me. I think coming from an amazing like location like Wanaka, where we're surrounded by the lakes and we don't have any trees around, something about like snowy pines for me growing up was just like crazy. And then when I discovered the pillows that they form in around that area, it was just like mind boggling. And so very excited to spend more time in around there. But I'd say like when I gravitate someone towards a ski trip, I always probably push them towards like going to Japan, just given that I think it's got that amazing side of really cool culture, good food, and then you usually score the goods there if you're in around January, February. So I'd say those two like stick out. I can't rule it down, because I was about to say as well, that trip to Alaska was probably like, it's got to be one of the biggest highlights that I've ever had on snow. And again, one of those places that you see a lot growing up, and on the video parts that you build up this own mental image around, and then getting to be in the driver's seat up there that's a whole nother ball game.
Yeah, for sure. And so now that we've talked about favorite places to ski, is there one line that you've skied or one run that really sticks out? And go, feel free to make it a top three, but I mean, when you best line ever, what was it?
this will make everyone in NZ laugh and probably pretty happy because I reckon the best line that I've ever skied is still Crag Shooter at Triple Cone. Which both Crag Shooter and Triple Treat is probably the run that I've skied the most in my life, and still the most consistently gives me so much stoke. So I'd say yeah, pretty simple. Everyone can ride it, but those are the ones that really get me pumped up every time I get to shred there. And we usually have a like 10-man rat pack running through those kind of lines. So always
what's so good about it?
I would say just the amount of hits that you can have through it and the amount of different approaches and lines that you can take throughout both of those runs is something that like you see everyone's riding style come out and lines like that, and it's pretty simple. It's not high consequence, and I think I don't know that side of skiing is something that's always had a lot of allure. You know, it's something you can share with all ages and different stages of life. So it's I'd say that's why it's my favorite.
That's awesome. We're just popping around here on different topics. The direction that skiing is going in right now, and competitive skiing as well. What's this for you? Like, what's the state of skiing? Well, free ride, but skiing, because you're really the all arounder. We've talked about it, and it's one of the things that people always say about the Kiwis is you guys grown up you're kind of like the Swedes. You've grown up in rough conditions, so you're really good at doing everything and are spectacular to watch. But so where do you see skiing going in the future? And then I want to ask you about competitive skiing and what like your dream format would be if you could create your own contest.
Ooh, big question. I think right now it's in a very interesting place, like as an industry. I guess coming off the back of like we've had an Olympic movement within free skiing for a couple cycles now, and seen both the positives and negatives of that. And I think right now there's a lot of cool things happening within the industry with having more independence of like rider-owned brands and riders starting their own events, kind of breaking away from maybe some of that structure that has come into the sport over the last few years. And that's something that I definitely encourage. I think it's cool to have opportunities for people in any end of the spectrum, whether they want to go down, the Olympic route and be with national teams, or if they want to be jibbing around with their friends. I think like there's a place for everyone within skiing, and I think that's cool to have that type of inclusion. And then I guess for the like competitive freeride sense, I think, we're seeing that merger, I guess, happen right now with the Freeride World Tour and FIS coming across, which I'm definitely like eager to see where it goes. And there's been a lot of conversations about it, having lived through that experience in slopestyle and big air. I think, there's good management at the Freeride World Tour and with those people still in charge. And I think it could be something beneficial, but I'm also, gonna just sit in the back seat a little bit and watch what happens, because the time will tell where that goes. But I'm really excited to see the inclusion of natural selection becoming a ski event as well. That recently popped up. I think watching that on the snowboard side is something that resonated a lot for me. Those old events like Red Bull Line Catcher and Supernatural and things, they definitely had that cool equilibrium between freestyle and freeride, and just a really like playful style of riding. And I think came out of those types of events that was reflective, I think, a lot of the video parts that we've seen. And so I'm excited to see the types of riders that come out of the woodwork to jump back in the competition bib and have a go at natural selection. I think it's going to be a crazy show.
So they haven't really talked much about actually they haven't talked at all about what the format's going to be, unless you've been talking with Condit or Marcus, and I don't know who else is on the riders board right now. But what do you think they're going to throw at us? Because like natural selection was the natural selection tour, and then they just took the tour off the end, and it's just natural selection. It's gone from snowboard to now they've added mountain bike and surfing and skiing. So what do you think the format? What do you think they're gonna throw at us for the ski competition, which is happening in Alaska, as if I am not mistaken?
Yeah, one stop for ski from my understanding in Alaska. And yeah, I guess it's going to probably follow that similar. I don't know if it's going to be like duels or how they're going to like lay out the competition format as to what's reflective like in the snowboarding side. But I think just the fact that it's going to be up in AK where you've got some of the most premier terrain in the world, and they've got a long weather window for the event from my understanding. So they're probably going to score the goods, which is going to be super exciting. And also just like, I think this could be terrifying to watch at the same time. It's like, I see it being kind of in that same realm of like Red Bull Rampage. It's like you're watching just blown away by what's happening, but also just going like, oh my God, this is like on the edge of the seat. So, yeah, I don't know too much about, I guess, all the formats and ins and outs either, but I just think it's cool, again, coming back to that side of having a place for every type of riding, in a kind of competition sense is something that's beneficial to the industry as a whole. And I guess with the segregation of like different ends of the spectrum of people seeing freestyle and freeride, I think having a few different kind of areas for people to put their energy into, it's going to be something that's going to bring just a whole lot more riding and innovation to the whole of skiing.
It's gonna be interesting to see. It's funny that you mentioned the Red Bull Rampage because, and I'm not a huge mountain biker, but I guess there's a bit of controversy maybe the last 2 or 3 editions between the true free ride guys who are just chucking it off the natural cliffs and everything like that, and then the more, I guess, slope style dudes who are, hitting the pre-shaped kickers and stuff like that. Do you think, and it's funny because that's one of the things in natural selection at first with to make it a true backcountry freestyle event, should it only be natural features, or are you cool with the enhanced kickers, the enhanced features within the freeride contest?
I don't think there's any rights or wrong. It's skiing at the end of the day, and it's, I guess, up to the rider to tell. But I don't know. I think it's so much more challenging to be put in tricks into fully natural features where you don't have a packed out takeoff, and so I think that comes with its own set of challenges. But I think you'll see more progressive tricks if there is like built-in takeoffs throughout the place. Pretty diplomatic answer.
Yes, indeed. So you're going to spend this season filming, but if you get an invite, are you going?
Oh, for sure. I'd love to be involved. I imagine like it's a very small rider like pool that they'll have. I think there's like 8 riders or something in it. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of big dogs that I'm sure are sitting waiting for an invite. But if that opportunity came up, we'll definitely be over there as soon as possible.
For sure. All right. Well, we're pretty much getting to the end of this thing. You're super loyal to super loyal, obviously. You're a very professional free rider and free skier. And you have some great relationships with your sponsors. And especially, I think one dear to your heart, Malls Royale. You even had your own custom collab with them, 100% Kiwi collab. Oh, you're wearing it right now. Of course you are. Couldn't see that. Good man. So what is it? Proud to be a Kiwi and proud to be representing 100% Kiwi brand.
Yeah, for sure. I think like growing up and around here, it's had a huge influence on my life and my riding, and lots of the companies I'm working with now are offshore, and you kind of, I think, have to do that a little bit to be able to create opportunities for yourself, be living on the other side of the world. And so very lucky to have those other partners to be able to kind of go out and do that. But then also coming back to New Zealand and being partnered with Mons, it's been such a cool kind of full circle, and awesome to work with the team here in Wanaka. They're from the same hometown that I've grown up, and have known Hamish and Hannah, the founders, since day dot. So it's super cool to be working with those guys, and excited to kind of collab on some more products and also projects in the future with them.
Indeed. And so for skis, vocal from day one, or that I'm going back through your Instagram once again. It seems like you've been with them for a long time as well.
Yeah, I think it's been over 10 years, I want to say like 12 years or something. Since I was 11, I got on them. So, yeah, long time riding for vocal. Shinka, the team manager, there's been an amazing support. And, I think saw early on some of those, like, I guess, different sides. He was supporting me through like doing free ride as a Grom as well, which was super cool. So lucky to have that vision early.
Indeed. You were with Quick, but I guess no longer are 100% Oakley now.
Yeah, ran for Oakley, goggles, helmets, and outerwear as well. So yeah, no longer with Quick. Had amazing, I think 7 years or something with Quicksilver, which was super cool, especially with that crossover between ski and surf, and the snow.
Yeah.
Got to go on some pretty cool trips with both surfers and skiers and boarders, which was super sick. And like you were saying, you were working with them. I'm sure you had some pretty amazing opportunities with a bit of a legacy brand. So yeah.
If you can't rock and roll, don't fucking come, Finn.
I remember this slide when I was probably like 18 or something. I got invited on this like van trip with them, boosting around the Alps, and the first slide of the invite was just, if you can't rock and roll, don't fucking come. And it's just got this big clicky logo, and I was like, this company's sick.
Yeah. Very, very good times. Very good times. And recently, I saw the video on your Instagram once again, riding. You've got your wings now.
Yeah.
Riding for Red Bull.
Yeah.
Were you surprised when the boys jumped out of the from behind the bushes with the helmet?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely didn't see that one coming of the timing of getting the helmet and whatnot. But yeah, we've been talking with those guys for a while prior, so there'd been some conversations happening. But was pretty sick to get the helmet and see your name on the back, and had a pretty epic day out in the mountains around Wanaka with them to do the kind of signing and everything. So yeah, super lucky to have their support, and definitely some big things to come in the future with them.
Good deal. Well, speaking of the future, where do you see yourself? What do you see yourself doing in 10 years' time?
Oh, halfway through my 20-year plan. Nah. Good question. I think, right now I'm really enjoying the direction I've got going with my skiing and the opportunities that have come out of it. And so definitely looking to put my best foot forward into those over the next few years. But I think for me, like the most important bit is just like keeping the passion alive and following that passion. With everything else aside, like keeping that at the forefront, and usually that's due to sharing it with good people, and so surrounding myself in types of environments that have a lot of people that share the same commonalities and values, and I think following those things ultimately will just in turn lead to some good things. But I can't pinpoint it, not looking too far ahead, just enjoying the ride and the simplicity of that at the moment.
Sounds good. Any shout outs?
Or definitely to the fam, mum, dad have been, the biggest supporters, to Hank, and then everyone here in Wanaka that's helped with the kind of, I guess, my outlook on the ski world. And, of course, since we're on the tour podcast, I think, a big thank you to both Nico and Lolo, who, gave me the opportunity to be involved in the world tour. Wildcards aren't easy things to get, and that definitely had a huge impact on my life. So thankful for them and the whole team that's helped make those events happen. It's been a cool couple of years with them, and excited for what's to come. But yeah, plenty of people to thank. So
awesome. Well, you definitely put those wild cards to good use. We hope to see you again on the Freeride World Tour in the future. And no matter what happens, and no matter where you're skiing and who you're doing it with, we wish you all the best. And look forward to following the rest of your career. So Finn Bilous, thank you very much, mate, for coming and hanging out and chatting with us for a little good hour and 20 minutes here. It's been awesome. And look forward to seeing what happens this coming winter up in AK. And I do hope to see you on Natural Selection as well as being back on the Freeride World Tour with another wild card one of these days.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, dude, it's been awesome.
Cheers, brother.
I hope you enjoyed that chat with Finn Bilous as much as I did. This episode of No Fall Zone definitely going in the classic category with an absolute character and a super ski talent. As usual, next Friday we will be back with another guest, so check out all the Freeride World Tour social media channels to find out who that person will be. Until next time, don't forget to drop in.